Hello, Heatseekers. It's the Heat Sheet. Hello, Heatseekers, and welcome to another edition of the Heat Sheet. This week's edition is a two-man booth. There's just the two of us here tonight. Myself, Editor-in-Chief Chris Jack, and another regular of the parish, Steve Roche. Steve, how are you doing this week?
I'm wonderful, Chris. How are you?
Not too shabby, not too shabby. How did your stand-up go over the weekend? There, I noticed you were dropping some gags in Glasgow.
Oh yes, very, very well. It was my first kind of proper go at it since my wedding, because I set it aside for a few months so the house move and the wedding can be kind of fixated on. But I did very well. We had a good turnout. Shout out to my pal Ray Coley for putting it together. Did a good job in getting some punters in, and it's not like we didn't have much to talk about with that whole Willy Wonka fiasco.
Aye.
That was like wrestling. That was like wrestling level carny bullshit stuff.
Oh yeah,
brilliant.
I think I saw Lemmy. Like obviously he decrees everything that happens in comedy, and he said, I know that like all the patter around it was to end at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, but in terms of the fuel that it would have had for gigs up and down Scotland and even up and down England and beyond, it's such a wrestling thing. You think all these the Brit scandals and even I'd seen folk comparing it to 5-star wrestling, in terms of over promising and under delivering. But I mean, what would you say? Bringing it kind of full circle to wrestling there. What would you say has been the biggest Glasgow Willy Wonka experience that you can relate to wrestling? What's the thing you've been oversold on, and it's just been utter bollocks?
I think I remember when 2003 was it when and it's ironic because we're going to talk about me heavily in this podcast. It was that show. I can't even remember it, but basically it was at the SECC, and it was like this touring wrestling gig. It was for an Australian-based company that put it together. Now they brought the star power, but the match quality was fucking dire. Sting was in the main event with Lex Luger, but the thing is, they never actually wrestled.
All right.
I think the rumour was that Luger was not in any fit shape or form to wrestle. And I think Sting as well had been out the ring a year or two, and I don't think he was that confident about it either. So they kind of winged it and just basically did an extended promo. But Luger was that off his tits that he didn't actually realise he was in Scotland, because he says, "Sting, I'm going to kick your ass right here in Glasgow, England." And of course, you can imagine how that went down. And then Sting got on the mic, says, "Well, number one, dumbass, you're actually in Scotland." So that got a kind of cheap pop. And second of all, you're not going to kick my ass, I'm going to kick your ass, yada, yada, yada. And they just ran the ropes for a wee bit. And then Sting just caught him in the Scotland Deathlock and kind of just pinned him 1, 2, 3. So it was barely even a match kind of thing. Bret Hart was also advertised. We legit thought he was actually coming out of retirement and wrestling. But all he did was just cut a kind of wee half-hearted 2-minute promo at the start and just basically buggered off. He just says, "It's great to be here in Glasgow. I know it's a great wrestling city. By the way, fuck up Bill Goldberg." Because he was like, that was just start of his fuck Bill Goldberg tour.
Has to get that in. It's you'd be disappointed these days if that wasn't a part of a Bret Hart meet and greet.
Yeah.
I think the closest thing that I can relate it to, and again, I'm out the wrestling game, so I can say whatever I want about the promotions that I worked for. There was a promotion started up in Belfast just before, it must have been just before lockdown kicked in, NXG Wrestling. They put on some really good shows. Over here, they've got their own kind of wee place where they do their own kind of like house shows where it's all their own in-house talent that are on them. And then they do occasionally do bigger shows where they've had the likes of Simon Miller, they've got Sachs and Huxley coming across, and they've got a good kind of partnership with, I think it's a Portuguese company as well. So they get a lot of importers coming in for those ones as well. But one of their very first shows, they had it at... what's the place? I was going to say Muckamore, but it's no Muckamore. Anyway, it's somewhere up east in Belfast, and there was loads of us got involved in it, putting the show together. And when we turned up to do the ring build, they didn't have any ropes. Didn't have any ropes for the ring, and it was upstairs in this like working men's club, and there was supposed to be a battle royal, and we had no ropes. And it turned out that even if there were ropes on it, getting chucked over the top rope, you would not have cleared the ceiling because the ceiling was too low. So we ended up, we got like, like the blue ropes that you use for like, just like tying bales of hay and stuff together.
Yeah.
That was the ropes that we had for the show. The Battle Royal get cut. We had a match that had someone who was legitimately over 7 foot tall. And he was having to duck for the whole match. The main event ended up going from being a straight-up match to a street fight because they couldn't do half the stuff they wanted to do in the ring. So it all happened outside the ring and outside the venue as well. And because the Rumble get cut, myself and one of the other guys, we did an angle. No, there was no reason for us to do the angle. We just get told to go and do the angle, which turned out to be me getting battered off a guy called Enzo, who used to be on my old podcast quite a bit, and it was just an absolute riot. I mean, we made it work as a good show, but if I had paid whatever it was to get into that show and seen that the ring was basically, held together with string, and half the talent couldn't perform, it would very much be in that Willy Wonka category.
Yeah.
But anyway, Willy Wonka is last week's news, and what we want to talk about is, well, still kind of last week's news, I suppose, but it's the relevant wrestling news that's gone on. So the two of us, we're going to go through the front page, back page, and page 3, as well as the TV pages of this week's wrestling. And somewhere in the middle of the podcast, we're also going to chuck in an interview that friend of the show, Billy Strachan, did last year with Scotty Too Hotty. And we'll talk a wee bit more about why we're doing that when we get to it. So that's going to be our centrefold this week as well. And hopefully, if you've seen Scotty Too Hotty in the description or in the tweets on this, hopefully that's brought you along, because we do really need the numbers. But we are going to start off. This is going to be an AEW Revolution centric episode of the Heat Sheet, because it's been the biggest thing that's happened in wrestling over the last wee while, or certainly the last week anyway. And we're going to go right to the front page on it. And there's only one news story that I think that we can discuss on here, and that is the retirement of the Icon Sting. Now, Steve, I know that you are much more educated and much more knowledgeable of WCW and Sting's repertoire before AEW. I'm only really aware of some of his work in the 90s on WCW, probably more of his TNA stuff, and then his brief spell in the Fed as well. Then obviously his all elite wrestling run has been to coin, to pun full intended, it's been iconic the way that he's done his stuff in Jacksonville and beyond. But in terms of yourself, what did you make of the whole build up and execution of Sting's retirement match at Revolution?
I think it's been probably one of maybe even the best build retirement in a long time of any big company. I think they really did well to make you care about it, and I think that the Bucks deserve a lot of credit here. I know the Bucks, justifiably have been targeted heavily in a negative way in recent times, but I think you've got to give them credit. This heel run with the EVP thing they've done is really brought them back to form, and just reminds you like how scummy they can be as heels, like attacking Sting's sons right after him and Darby first won the belts, and it's and it's really made you get behind Sting and Darby fully. And I mean, not that there was much of that needed because they were like ultra baby face, but the way the Bucks have acted made you even care about it very even more so as well. And add to the fact Sting's dad died. What was it? 10 days before the pay per view as well. I mean that threw in the drama, but at the same time they didn't overly sell that as well. I think I could tell that Sting wanted that included, but not put that at the forefront of it all. And it makes you think as well. Like we're talking about a guy that goes back to the golden age in many ways. He started out in the kind of late days of the territory era in the 80s, and then he was basically the face of WCW, probably the one big star of the 80s and 90s that wasn't involved with WWF at any time as well, which makes it even more incredible as well. And a guy as well that the cross generations. You're talking about a guy that from WCW to TNA, now AEW, a guy that's crossed 3 generations of wrestling and stayed relevant all through it and being a popular star. So yeah, I think it was the best retirement match on a mainstream level that's anyone's had in a long time. I'm trying to think what the last big one was, or like when the last successful one was, because
there's been Kurt Angle's was pretty underwhelming. You had the Undertaker's retirement, whatever that was, Survivor Series during lockdown. It was pretty poor as well. I mean, those are the sort of the main ones that are the
number one should be Flair, but of course he fucked it by having that mini TNA run.
Yep, and then his actual final match with Jarrett and Andrade and Jay Lethal was just people legitimately thinking he died in the ring. And I was quite sceptical as well, because obviously you can't talk about Sting's career without mentioning Flair, because it's been so intertwined throughout the years. Yeah. But I think the sparing use of Flair in the match at Revolution the other night there, I think that was well done. I think that just having him come in there, take a bump off the Bucks, that was enough, because you didn't want him overshadow. There was a fear that it would overshadow the match itself, because Flair tends to pull focus quite a lot. But I think the way that they did that, especially involving Ricky Steamboat as well, I liked that element of the match. I mean, a lot's been said about the match itself. Sting and Darby against the Bucks for the AEW tag team titles, and obviously the main, other than it being Sting's last match, the main thing that people have taken away from it is that absolutely batshit crazy bump that Darby took. I mean,
fucking hell.
Obviously, I keep saying obviously. There's shades of Jeff Hardy at his peak in there, and Jeff is obviously a big influence on Darby. Mm-hmm. But do you think that was sort of a bump too far in terms of the danger of it, in terms of the risk of it? And I think even like some of the fans at ringside had been hit with some of the glass as well. And I know that AEW have said they're not taking any responsibility for it, because there was a disclaimer before the match. When you first saw that, the whole setup with the glass, what was your immediate thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I enjoyed it just because it was an insane spot, but at the same time, like, once you saw the Twitter comments, they're going, Jesus fucking Christ, he's not going to be if he's not in a wheelchair by 50 or dead, he's unbelievably lucky. And it is crazy given there's barely a dynamite that goes by where he doesn't do something batshit insane, or a pay-per-view where he hasn't been involved with a crazy bump. Add to the fact he's also a professional skater, which itself is an insanely dangerous sport as well. So I do. I've said this before. It is a sign that sometimes in AEW there is too much creative freedom given to some wrestlers, and Darby Allin's the crux of that, I think. But there's also like a wee bit of double standards as well. I don't know if you got the news. Sammy Guevara's been suspended.
It's not earlier on today, yeah.
Aye, and I think somebody says, well, hang on a minute, Guevara gets suspended, and all right, he should do, but Darby Allin can launch himself off a fucking 18-foot ladder, damn near kill himself through glass. You know, something doesn't add up here. It's picking your favourites almost kind of thing.
I would agree and disagree with that, because I think the Sammy Guevara thing, again, I don't know if it's true or not, but from reading various accounts on it, it wasn't the botched the botched aerial, I forget what it was, where they landed in Jeff's head. That was the issue. It was that the referees had told him to take it home, and he still went and did the GTH the GTH on him, which goes against the concussion protocol. Right, and he'd been told not to.
I also read it was also because him and the Hardys have already had
they've had beef as well.
When he gave Matt the famous concussion from a few years back. So,
but I think that's what it's been, because instead of just finishing the match at that, he then put Jeff Hardy's head in danger yet again, and that's what the issue's been. And again, I suppose the other difference is that Darby's bump is only endangering himself. He's not endangering someone else.
Still, it's a scary thing to do, because like, what if he overshot it or something, or what if a bit of the glass backfired in the wrong way or something, like. So it is enjoyable, but sometimes somebody needs to tell him that you don't always need to do this, because you are a good enough wrestler without having to resort to that kind of things. Because he's even got like an amateur wrestling background. I think even I've heard him in a podcast before say he thought about giving MMA a shot, because he had a collegiate wrestling background. So there's proof enough that he doesn't need to do all this stuff. He's well trained to do it without it, and we've seen him do it. I think the matches with Cody, they didn't have those crazy spots, and they were some really good matches.
Even the MJF match that he had as well, like the mat wrestling, and that was unreal too. Yeah. But yeah, back to the man at hand. It was Sting's last match, and the way that it was executed, I thought was perfect. You know, it wasn't a perfect wrestling match by any means, and it followed the similar kind of formula to a lot of the high profile matches that Sting and Darby have been in, where a lot of the action takes place outside the ring. There's a lot of no selling from Sting in it, but it hit every beat that you wanted it to hit, from the little video package before the match, with Sting in the cinema watching the retrospective of his career, to his sons coming out as Surfer Sting and Wolfpack Sting, and then having them involved at the start of the match as well, and then going through obviously the Derby spot, and then the Bucks kind of taking control in it, to Sting no selling. In fact, even tied at the start of the match, you got the two of them in the Scorpion Deathlock as well, which is pretty cool. I think it played to all the points that you wanted it to hit, and I think the only downside of it was that you didn't get the full farewell promo on the feed.
Give it, aye.
But in terms of Sting's legacy in AEW, you know, a lot of people thought he would go out on his back and him and Darby would drop the titles to the Bucks in it, but you know, he's going out with a perfect record on there.
Yeah.
Do you think that of all the talent that Tony Khan's had at his disposal over the last few years, do you think anybody has been booked and performed better than what Sting has during that run?
In terms of like a legend kind of signing?
Not even legend, just in terms of, you know, the talent that he's put over, the matches he's put on, the enjoyment factor. I mean, there's been very few, I mean, like off the top of my head, like one of the most iconic things was Sting, Darby, and Punk. In their match where they all had the face paint on. You had the there's so the ones where I can't remember who the opponents were. Was that one against Team Taz where he was jumping off like the entrance ways and stuff like that as well. You know, the amount of bumps that he took through tables and that as well. Just incredible.
And there was the coffin match at Wembley.
Yes,
as well. That was a good example of that. Then I think he did exactly what they wanted from him. He one of the things that AEW did well, certainly in its early days, was bring back a lot of lapsed fans, and I think that's what the goal was Sting, bringing a key guy from the Monday Night War era, that can kind of bring back some lapsed fans, and I think he did that. Because I heard like there's like older guys like our age who, you know, stopped watching after the Monday Night War era, but then they heard that Sting debuted during the lockdown and all that, and they kind of got back into wrestling a wee bit, and I think he was the main crux for that as well, and I think no matter what, we always got enjoyment out of those tag matches that him and Darby were always having. They weren't overly serious, and they always delivered a bit of drama, and you were always guaranteed with Sting whenever he's doing any of the no selling and, you know, giving out the old woos and all that. It always got a crowd riled up. So yeah, I think it has been one of maybe even the best signing that they've made. Probably the only one that would rival with it would be Punk pre all the drama starting.
Cool. Well, to close this section out, do you think across whether it's AEW, WWE, or any other mainstream promotion, do you think we'll ever see someone have the career that Steve Borden had as Sting?
And it's hard to see anyone who will, because, you know, the thing you always hear about Sting is that he is the one guy that reached the very top of the business, stayed there, stayed relevant for 3 decades, and he did it all without making an enemy. I think, like, I know Cena, in a way, you could say that he's maybe in that bracket, but Cena was always handpicked from the start, whereas Sting had to fight and claw his way through that a wee bit, because when he first broke in the scene, it was very much Steamboat and Flair. They were the NWA guys. Dusty, I guess, was still back then as well. So he had to fight his way up a wee bit, and he was still a bit green in ring wise. By the time he was signed to WCW, he needed the help of Flair and Steamboat to bring to get rid of some of that rawness and refine his talent a wee bit. So, it's hard to see someone similar having that career. I guess Darby. I guess that you would imagine is what Darby's now expected to do. Continue Sting's legacy as his protege.
Do you think you might see his sons get involved as well? Because the two of them looked pretty handy.
I mean, they both. I'm surprised they've not became wrestlers, because they're both pro or are ex-footballers, and I think I can't remember which one, but one was the quarterback for the University of Kentucky, and that's one of the big university sides in America, like NCAA sides. So I'm surprised they haven't. Maybe he didn't want them to.
There's
Um,
that very much could be the
aye.
case.
Or they didn't want maybe they didn't want the pressure because they say, well, we grew up, most weeks our dad wasn't there, so maybe they didn't want to do that to their kids. Kind
Aye.
of thing could be that.
And of course, they're millennials, so they don't want to be seen as being nepo babies
Yes,
either
exactly.
than that. But
Even though it's a business that's full of it.
exactly, it thrives on it. It thrives on it. But yeah, from the heat sheet to Sting, Steve Borden, if you're ever listening, thank you for all the memories. Thank you for the AEW run. Thank you for the short time you spent in WWE, and obviously your TNA and your WCW legacy are forever going to be remembered. So from us to you, thank you very much, Steve. And we'll give your front page the headline of Sting's final match makes quite the splash. So we'll go with that. Now, from an iconic retirement match on the front page to the best matches of the AEW Revolution pay-per-view on the back page, we're going to discuss the best in-ring action of the most recent All Elite Wrestling pay-per-view. Now, Steve, you can kick us off on that. You're going to pick one, and I'm going to pick one, and we'll just talk through them. We're not competing this week, as it's just the two of us here. But what would you say was the best match on the card from Revolution at the weekend?
For me, it's got to be Will Ospreay against Konosuke Takeshita. Just a mental hard-hitting match. Very similar to the matches Ospreay had last year with Kenny Omega. But the story of it was very interesting because it's two teammates essentially facing off each other. When it was booked, I thought this is a bit strange having this as Ospreay's first match as an official AEW roster member. I mean, having that going against a teammate. I mean, I'd have thought they would surely book him immediately against Orange Cassidy for the international title. But actually, it does make sense. It's Callis trying to make the point that I've got the two best wrestlers in ring in my faction here. So it was a brilliant match. The key points were those the spinning elbows, those stiff spinning elbows. I mean, they look brutal, and they were stiff as well. I don't think they were worked. They were stiff, and there was that fucking brilliant Blue Thunderbomb that Takeshita countered Ospreay with the Oscar, caught him brilliantly and spun him to perfection. Brilliant spot that, and of course that fucking Tiger Driver again, man. And it looked, I'd argue, even scarier than the one he gave Omega, because the way Takeshita landed, it was the back and neck this time. He folded him near enough.
It's always scary seeing that move, especially at the speed that Ospreay does them at. It's getting them up and getting them rotated enough to get it over, because one slip on that and you're paralysing a dude. But it was very, very good. I mean, I only really saw the last sort of 5 minutes of it from, I think it was from the Takeshita doing the German, the rolling German. From that point onwards, leading up to the finish with Ospreay hitting the hidden blade. But there was just like some phenomenal movement on that. And I've seen a few people complaining online that why are they no selling these moves? And then you've got the fighting spirit argument against it. It's the adrenaline pumping through them. It's the momentum. It's all that sort of stuff. But it was an incredible showcase of both men's athleticism, their agility, their timing more than anything as well. Because I think with that hidden blade as a finisher, for that to look effective, I'm pretty much having to take it, because he's coming from behind you. Ospreay's obviously not going to shout duck. It's something that you need to. It's something that really needs to be crisp for it to look the part, and both the two of them having never wrestled before as well, for the chemistry that they had in that match, or certainly in the bits that I saw of it anyway, just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal.
It's very, very Japanese centric. It's like kind of like the main event matches you get often in New Japan. The strong style, willing to take stiff shots, almost MMA like kind of quality to it. So it's a great match. The only complaint I've got is the botched brainbuster at the turnbuckle, because Ospreay, I think he slips out and he takes a really uncomfortable landing on it was his kidney area, wasn't it?
Aye, it was like his side back kind of. Yeah.
So that's only bit I would complain about, but botches happen. It can't be helped, and I think they recovered well enough to finish the match well. But it was a great match, and I think as well. I mean, it's why I'm so excited to see Ospreay in AEW as well, because we're going to see more of that. I can't wait to see him against. I'd love to see him against Eddie Kingston.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he mixes the styles of guys in AEW, because he's very much. I know that he's not a one-note wrestler, but his most high-profile matches against the likes of Kenny Omega and Ibushi and guys like that, they're all very much in that Ospreay style. Whereas when he is going up against the likes of an Eddie Kingston, which is going to be a much slower match, him against Danielson would be incredible when it happens as well. And there's various others on that AEW roster that you just it's him against Darby. That's like try to think of the logistics of the two of them just flying about that ring.
Aye, I mean, they wouldn't shock me if they actually they climb the fucking Titantron and just fling each other off. It wouldn't shock me one bit.
And I think the one of the more surprising things to me is how over he was in the building. At the end of the match, everyone's like chanting his name along with his theme music. He seems to be, from that reaction, he seems like he's going to be the next top guy in that company. Yeah. And if the fans can get behind him as a babyface, you've got to have him as some sort of headline match at Wembley. That's what they need to be building. If this momentum from Revolution keeps up, that's got to be what they're looking at.
Aye, I think so. I think I can see it now. It's Swerve against Ospreay main event in Wembley. I think that's where we're heading.
But again, by the time Swerve gets the belt, if Ospreay goes over them, it's a lot of build for Swerve to not have the title a long time.
I know, but I think
unless Kenny's back by that point.
True, aye, or MJF. So I think you could. There's sorry not to get too off track, but it's why I'm a wee bit disappointed that Hangman didn't actually win the title. I know why we haven't, because we've later found out he's actually taking time off. But I kind of wanted Hangman to win the title because he's pretty much gone full heel, and then for Swerve to chase him for it. But no, I think if it's not Swerve Ospreay, I wouldn't hate it if it's Ospreay, Samoa Joe, or who else is a feasible one?
Adam Cole, maybe, if he's fit.
Aye.
There's loads, because I mean, obviously, I think there's a stable war ready and waiting to happen between the United Empire and Undisputed Kingdom. I think for the crowning of the AEW's top stable, something like that.
Kingdom versus Empire.
Aye.
That's got a nice ring to it.
But there's absolutely there's loads that they can be doing with it, and even in defeat, I don't think the defeat diminishes Takeshita any as well. And that I think that he's too good for the loss like that to impact on him. And I think if he's sticking with the Callis family and whatnot, build him up as this final boss, kind of like what Joe is, make Takeshita like the workhorse boss, if that makes sense.
I think he'll also face Okada in his first match as well.
Aye, there'll definitely be some interactions with them on that. But yeah, any other week I would be fully on board with Ospreay and Takeshita as being the lead on the back page of the heat sheet. But I think doing it, other than a close call on that, would be Daniel Bryan against Eddie Kingston for the Continental Crown Championship, whatever that is they're calling it. I just thought that match was class, and I've seen a lot of people shitting on it online, saying that Eddie's looking out of shape. Eddie Kingston looks exactly like he always looks. He looks like a fat guy that doesn't give a fuck, and that's
his appeal.
That's it. He's an everyman.
He's a guy that looks like me. You know what I mean? That's part of his appeal. Kevin Owens has got that appeal as well.
Yeah.
That's why he's so likeable.
He's got that everyman quality to him, and obviously this is the third time they've faced each other. I'd seen, I think it was maybe Ian Drew Dice Clay or someone else on X had done a really good kind of breakdown of it, that across the three matches, the first match that the two of them had, Bryan Danielson was being an arrogant prick. He was, smiling all the way through it and whatnot. The second match, it was still being dismissive of Eddie. And in this final one, he's taking him seriously. He's taking him like a proper competitor. And even in the post-match stuff where the two of them are in the trainer's room and showing respect to each other, having disrespected each other for so long, was a good way of kind of tying up that story. But I just think that we've been used to rooting for Daniel Bryan as underdog for so long that seeing a proper underdog against him in Eddie Kingston, it gives so many layers to the stories that they've told across the three matches. And I just think that the way that it all came about, Eddie getting the win with the power bomb and the high stack pin for the win, having taken two Bisaiku knees he took.
Yep.
He was in the label lock a couple of times.
He get chopped out with the triangle and all that.
Yep. There was so much of the cerebral offense that Daniel Bryan gives in his matches that Eddie took, and at times it looked like he was going to fade out, but he had that fighting spirit again to pull through in it. And yeah, the hurricanes that he was throwing at Bryan, again, when you think about Daniel Bryan's concussions in the past and whatnot, taking those spinning back elbows adds to the drama on it. I just think the two of them, for being so opposite in terms of look and size and kind of, I don't want to say work ethic, because that sounds like I'm giving Eddie Kingston a disservice there, but because you know how much craft Bryan Danielson puts into his work, whereas Eddie Kingston is, most notably a heavy hitter on that. Watching their two styles go together, I think I could watch them fight every week.
The central storyline to it is what made it even better. The fact that Eddie wasn't just satisfied with beating Danielson, he wanted him to shake his hand. Like he was saying to him, pinning you 1, 2, 3 is not enough for me. I need you to shake my hand after I've beaten you, because getting a win over you is not enough. I want you to publicly acknowledge that you have respect for me, because it was all dating back. We heard it all through his feud with Claudio, dating back to his days in Ring of Honor, where he was, the black sheep of that promotion because he was deemed as having the wrong attitude, was too lazy, and didn't work hard enough, etc., etc. And and he's always carried that chip on his shoulder and that bitterness towards like him and Punk and Claudio and whoever else that kind of disrespect him back then, and he's clawed his way up all through these decades to finally reach the heady heights. And then when he came on board, he found out they still didn't respect him, so he had to go one further. He had to not only beat them in the ring, but force them to publicly shake hands with them to get that acknowledgement and that recognition they always believed they deserved.
I totally agree on that. I think it's been great storytelling. You know, any time Eddie has come up against someone from his Ring of Honor days or his independent days, there's always been that underdog story. You know, fighting from underneath, that people didn't believe in him, or that he didn't believe, people believing that he didn't believe in himself to get to where he needed to be. We've seen it in the Punk storyline. We've seen it, as you mentioned, with Claudio, and then we were seeing it with Danielson again. So, yep, absolutely astounding match. And I think the two of them are going to sit well on the back page of the heat sheet this week. Yeah. So, for your match for the Ospreay and Takeshita one, I'll let you come up with the headline for that one.
Oh, I'm not sorry. Yeah, I think we'll just go Kanosuke and Ospreay. Oh my God! I know that's like a cop out from a copy from what you said last year for the Ospreay Omega match, but it's only one that kind of swings to mind.
No.
I don't know what you would have came up with.
I was struggling. That's why I threw it to you, to be honest. But for Kingston against Bryan Danielson, I've gone for Continental Crown does not look too heavy on head of the Kingston.
Lovely.
So we'll go with that. Now, before we get on to the gossip pages and TV pages, you're going to hear from Billy Stacking from Scottish Wrestling Network, who has kindly allowed us to showcase one of his many, many, many wrestling interviews that he's done over the last few years. Now, if you're not already subscribed to Scottish Wrestling Network, do so. Billy's putting out great content, whether it's his own interviews, whether it's his Wrestle Zone and various other live wrestling show reviews that he does, and also any of the other podcasts that he hosts on that network. He does a great amount of work. And one of the interviews that he carried out in 2023 was with Mr. Scott Garland, also known as Scotty 2 Hotty. So we're going to insert a clip from that interview here. And if you want to see the full thing, obviously watch or listen to this bit that we're chucking in here. But once you've done that, go and listen to and or watch the full thing at Scottish Wrestling Network on YouTube and on Spotify and all good places you get your podcasts, and even the shitty ones as well.
So, did you ever realise how bad luck you've had in Battle Royals in the past? Because I'm going through just watch some old wrestling clips, and of course, Royal Rumble 2001 be one of my favourites of all time. You didn't make it. Oh, you did make it in, but it was against Brothers of Destruction. And then I think it was later that year you had the Invasion, the one at Survivor Series, where you didn't actually make it in. Did you ever sit and just go, was Battle Royale something you enjoyed doing, or are you quite glad that you didn't have to do them? Or just did you never notice one of those things?
So people will say that you were so unlucky, but then, dude, you think about this, like, I could have had a match that night, right? And I could have had a singles match on that same show, right? On the Royal Rumble shows, they had a single match with D'Lo Brown, right? Say I had a match with D'Lo Brown. I go out there, I do my thing, hit the worm, cover him, 1, 2, 3. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Mm-hmm. But again, back to the moments. I had these moments on these shows that I didn't even realize at the time how cool they were. You got to think that thing with Taker and Kane, where it came out, and it's just the two of them. Like, dude, that's something every year at Royal Rumble, people start tagging me in those posts with that, or, with Taker getting eliminated by Maven, and then here I come again. And, dude, I'm talking about moments with The Undertaker, like one of the biggest names of all time that we're talking about 20 years later, whereas if it was just a singles match where I did everything, dominated the match, and then beat him with a worm, nobody would be remembered. Nobody would be talking about that now, so, and, I didn't know about moments then even, so I'm just, when I talk to you about moments now, or in my seminars, I'm talking about stuff that I've learned over the years, and it might be only within the last few years. Like this stuff has kind of clicked with me, where it's like it's about moments. People remember the moments. You think about Hogan and Rock at WrestleMania in Toronto. Nobody remembers anything that they did in the match. They remember the stare off, where people chanted the dueling chants with Hogan and Rock, and whatever they were saying, and like that's what you remember from the Hogan Rock match. Just the cool moments. So. No, but it's like had some, really cool Royal Rumble moments that for a guy like Undertaker, who I never got to wrestle, to have those with him and not even realize that, like when it happened until, 2 decades later, how cool it was,
I mean, you mentioned those like the dance off in 2000. That always appears in the big breakdown things at each year.
Crazy.
So yeah,
Yeah. Well,
it's
people
amazing.
ask me like, what's my favorite match or what's my biggest match or whatever. And I mean, I can't even go to a match. You got to think like that's the moment that put us on the map, was that Royal Rumble dance in 2000. It was just, again, the stars aligned, man. It was the Royal Rumble. It was New York City. It was sold out. It was the peak of that time. Everything was so hot. And it was so different at the time, for us to break into this dance. And it was like we were just right there. And that kind of put us on the map, and it was the crazy part about that, dude, is like I didn't even realize this until the last year or so, was that the Royal Rumble is in January, right?
Mm-hmm.
Too Cool and Rikishi wasn't a thing until a month before. So we were only together for a month when we got to that Royal Rumble and we did that dance. That's how fast things can happen. We went from almost being unemployed, I think, and in the fall to, Brian and I came back at the end of October, I think. We did a little bit on our own. And then December, Rikishi joined us. And then January, 30 days later, basically, we're doing that dance and the place is going crazy at the Royal Rumble. It's just insane.
If you look back at the year 2000 year 2000 in general, but yours especially, because you had the dance, you were tag champions, I think, during 2000 as well, and you won the light heavyweight title in 2000, and you had I think people are now starting to wake up, because it was only last year or so that people are going back to see your match with Dean Malenko going, these matches were phenomenal. Kind of thing. So that whole year, and that was the year I started proper getting into WF. I think I came in at the right time to see, like I say, you saying that was you at your peak, the peak of the industry as well, and it was just again, stars aligning. I got in at the year 2000. Here we are, 23 years later, speaking about it.
Yeah, and like that was another thing I don't think I realized how important it was to my career at the time, was working with Dean and Eddie and the Radicals and Chris and Perry. You had 4 guys who didn't do any showbiz at the time. They were wrestlers. They were wrestlers from WCW who were great wrestlers. They were all great before they got to WCW, and now you take this guy who dances and does the worm and you put him in there with Dean Malenko, who doesn't even smile, and he's a man of 1,000 holds. Like that's what made me, I think, was working with Dean, because it was so polar opposite that everything that I did should bug him because he's the serious guy and I'm the clown over here just having fun, and that's what makes everything work. And I think, in wrestling in general, that's what's so cool, is if you take a guy who's 6'8" and then you put him against Rey Mysterio, who's 5 feet tall, and what's going to happen? Like, and I think that's kind of what we've lost in the last few years, is everybody's just kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's I'll say in my seminars, whether it's you go back to, if you go back to Gorgeous George, who I've never seen wrestle a match, but I know who he is because of his outlandish characters. And then you go to the Hogan, if you go to the Hogan era in the 80s, and you had Bossman and DiBiase and Jake and Coco and Rick Martel and the Model and, all of these outlandish characters. Not that they're outlandish, but they just stuck out so much. If you're flipping to the channels, I need to watch this guy with a bird on his shoulder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this guy putting a python on somebody, like, and then you skip, fast forward to the Attitude Era again. You had all these crazy characters, and to me, like it's kind of weird to me that like we've pulled the curtain all the way back and we go, okay, it's all predetermined. It's a show. It's not a real competition. But now it seems to be more about the wrestling than ever. Like how does that, like, we said it's a show, but now we're going to be serious, is the most serious we've ever been. So it's a bit weird, but that's back to what I was saying though. Like that's just the characters are what makes it for me and always made it fun,
Absolutely. Speaking, so you said you're getting you had those moments in rumbles and battle royals and that, and you made the moments without having to actually take too much of the damage as well. So I'm assuming you never really, when anyone suggested TLC matches with Hardys and that, you were quite happy just to go, no, that's their moment. You keep that moment.
Yeah.
So there they are. That was Billy and Scotty Too Hotty. For more of that kind of thing, as I say, subscribe to the Scottish Wrestling Network. And Billy's just about to start season 7 of this. So you've got 6 seasons that you can go back and listen to, as well as all the other shows that he's been to, his Road Diaries, I think that's what they're called, might be wrong on that, but yeah, there's loads and loads of content on there, and if you like all that, buy a t-shirt off his off his site as well. He's got loads of merch that he punts out there too, and no doubt we'll have Billy back on at some point in the future. Now, we are going to move swiftly on to filling page 3, which is our gossip pages. Now, again, because it is just the 2 of us this week, it's going to be slightly different. So instead of looking at anything titillating, we are going to give our guesses and predictions on what's going to happen with all of the All Elite Wrestling titles in the aftermath of AEW Revolution. So, Steve, there was quite a few title matches on the show. It kicked off with Daniel Garcia against Christian Cage for the TNT Championship, which Christian defended after some interference with Nick Wayne in the lead up to the finish. Tony Storm retained the Women's Championship against Deonna Purrazzo. The tag team titles of... Well, we'll probably find, by the time this comes out, we'll probably find out what's happening with them, because obviously Sting and Darby retained, but we don't know if they're going to be vacated or if Darby's going to get a new partner or what's going to happen. Although I have seen that the Nicholas and Matthew, the EVPs, have a segment on Dynamite the night that we're recording this, addressing something major, so I don't know if that's going to be anything to do with the tag titles on that.
I was just actually going to bring that up. The theory is that's going to be the Okada announcement.
Oh,
yes. The what they believe is it's I think it was Mike Johnson that reported it.
Of PWI,
it's PW Insider. They reckon, because they know Okada's in Los Angeles, that's where the Bucks live, and the theory is that it's going to be the Bucks announcing that they signed Okada, not Tony Khan. So it's like them trying to say that they've kind of done a coup in signing Okada, and there's a theory this might bring Tony Khan in more as in a on-screen TV presence.
I don't like that
kind of thing.
Don't like that idea.
I know. I'd rather stay clear.
Yep.
Because he's too much. He's too Vince Russo for me as an on-screen talent.
He's not comfortable on telly either. Like it's all Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff and guys like that. They were television presenters. They were used to being on screen. Tony Khan's not, and having something like that could be very, very detrimental to that product and the legitimacy of stuff if they bring him on. So I wouldn't be a fan of that. But if it is Okada coming in that they're going to announce, that's really big. And I'd imagine that's going to be a lead into Big Business. It's going to be sort of like, the announcement will be that he's coming in. Or it could be that they're announcing a big signing and it's going to officially happen at Big Business, and that will be the tease for it.
That'll be the Mercedes unveiling.
Yeah. So obviously we've got that. And the other titles that we're going to talk about is obviously the AEW World Heavyweight title. Now that many believed that Swerve was going to take it, but as we spoke about earlier on, Samoa Joe retained it after Hangman tapped out. Now, I really like the way that they worked that finish. It was more about Hangman not wanting Swerve to win it as opposed to anything. And you can see how distraught Swerve was at the end of it. But now we've got Joe, who's not been a transitional champ, which many believed he was going to be. In fact, you know what? I completely missed. Who won the what was going to be the big meaty men thing? Who was it? Did Wardlow win that, or was it?
You know, I was going to ask you the same thing because that was the one part of the show I forgot.
So, because they've won a title. Let me check that up again. Petty and ill-informed as always. But in terms of the landscape of the aftermath of the three-way for the title, do you think it was the right decision in keeping the belt on Joe at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. I think that really compounds further the hatred between Swerve and Hangman. The fact that Hangman is willing to actually take a tap out loss if it meant Swerve not being world champion. I think it's a bit of a genius move, and it solidifies. It makes people sympathise with Swerve's status in his quest to be world champion. It sounds mental that a guy we now love a guy who broke into another man's home and threatened his infant child. As a baby face. So, but that's how well that feud's been done and how big a star Swerve is. And at the same time, it doesn't weaken Joe's reign in a way, because Joe could argue I was in there with the two of the best in the world, got my arse kicked, still came out as a world champion. So don't tell me I'm here through luck or a chance or whatever. And so yeah, I think it's really good, and I think as well. Yes, we all want Swerve to go over, but it can't be. We can't ignore how good a job Joe's done with the world title.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because MJF had a brilliant run, but he was carrying way too many injuries. A star needed to step up and take his place, and I'm glad they haven't just used him just as a carry over to the next guy. That they're giving him a proper solid run here that's got some legitimacy to it.
I've just checked there. It was Wardlow that won the All-Star Scramble match. And again, I think that's a title match at any time. I don't think it makes him number one contender. I think it's just a title match at any time. So do you think that he is going to step up to Joe, or do you think there's maybe an opportunity for them to wait until Joe's lost it? If MJF comes back, wins it back, that's your feud there, or does Wardlow take it from Joe, and then you can have Swerve turn face in that regard? Because we kind of saw the face turn a wee bit in the three-way when he refused to use the crown to smash Hangman or Joe on there. So again, because Joe's not a heel as such. I mean, he's that kind of tweener kind of way. Mm-hmm. So if Joe was to lose to Wardlow, step up Wardlow, feed him to Swerve takes title at some point off him, or MJF comes back, takes it off him. There's a few different ways that I could see that going.
True, because it's quite smart that they've made Wardlow the number one contender, because it all comes full circle now, because Samoa Joe was in on the whole devil thing, and now this could be Undisputed Kingdom now coming to Joe, says time you pay your debt here and give our boy his title shot. But a minority saying that Adam Cole said before is Wardlow's going to win the world title and do the right thing, give it to me. So,
and again, that could be because again, I believe it's an anytime title match or an anytime cash in, essentially.
It's got a sort of money in the bank aspect to it.
So you could have, Adam Cole goading Wardlow into using it.
Aye.
And him, maybe getting screwed out of being able to use it. You build up that tension, build it up, and then you get the payoff of Wardlow winning it and not giving it to Adam Cole. And again, if there's a thing, he could win it, not give it to Cole. I'll let realign himself with MJF, and then you've got MJF and Wardlow against the Undisputed Kingdom as well. So this is what I love about AEW. The title picture is never obvious. There's always something, or there's always something intertwined. There's always something that links back to something else. Yeah. And again, that's the beauty of it being the new company. They've been established coming up in 5 years now. So you've now got the chance to tie in storylines from maybe 2-3 years ago. You've got the chance to revisit all that, which they didn't have in those first few years because everything was fresh, everything was new. But now they're in that cycle where they can bring stuff, bring lore, bring legacy, whatever you want to call it, can bring that back in, and it can work well to elevate the storylines. So it's
stuff as well. Like with WWE, it's like you just know the world title picture is going to have Cody, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins in it for the next 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. Whereas this time last year, who the hell would have predicted Swerve Strickland would be the biggest babyface, arguably, in AEW?
You would never have said that Joe would be champion, no.
Exactly. Wardlow is the number one contender. Wardlow was dead in the water, seemingly a year ago.
Aye. The TNT stuff just did not work at all. And that's my only worry. And that anytime we've seen Wardlow and Joe go up against each other, they've not had great chemistry. So while it might be a good way of transitioning the belt onto Wardlow, I don't know if we would get the quality of match that you'd maybe want, because that would be a big that could be a big kind of proving ground for Wardlow.
See, that's the one thing about Wardlow. The one disadvantage is that he's got, like, he's a man out of time almost. He's one of those guys that back in the 90s would have been the ultimate. He's basically the wrestler everybody wished Kevin Nash was in his prime. Just smash a guy within 2 minutes. Powerbomb, 1, 2, 3, thank you very much, where's my paycheck? But it's hard to get that over now in the work rate era.
Yeah, he needs more than that. He needs more than just the Powerbomb symphony. But it's interesting to see where that's going to go. Likewise, with the Women's Championship, now, obviously, Toni Storm retained against Deonna Purrazzo at the Evolution. Surely her next in line. I know that they've brought the rankings back and whatnot, but you've got to think that, if Mercedes Moné is coming in the next week or so, that's going to be the next kind of big feud for that Women's Championship.
No, yes, it definitely makes sense. Toni Storm, she's carried that division the last 6 months, hasn't she? She's the only reason it still has any relevance. Mm-hmm. Let's be brutally honest. And I think setting up her in Mercedes is the next logical step, and think Mercedes probably should win it immediately. And then hopefully by then we've got Britt Baker back and they slowly build her back up again, and that's the next big
Jamie Hayter as well.
Feud in that division. Jamie Hayter as well, because has that not been her out more than a year now?
I think it was then about May, June, because it was not long before All In that she got injured. It must be coming up in a year. So be interesting to see if Mercedes Moné is the shot in the arm that the women's division needs, especially when you've got women like Chris Statlander kicking about in there as well, who should be in that conversation. Yeah. The Japanese ones as well. I think, is it Chris Statlander against Rio? I think on tonight's episode of Dynamite. But again, I'm pretty sure I saw that was announced. But you've got like Emi Sakura. You've got a lot of the other Japanese ones that were involved.
Shida comes back for a month and buggers off.
Nyla Rose as well. Nyla Rose is the one that should be the dominant one. I'm loath to say that she should be AEW's Nia Jax, but I just mean that in terms of the
Nia Jax if she could wrestle.
Aye. The big kind of the not the final boss, but somebody that has the potential to be that the fourth, the stick in the road, the monster heel kind of thing, the Lance Archer type thing. They kind of have that similar path, and I think if they do the Mercedes Moné introduction properly, and Tony can not just keep the character work going as well as it's going, but I think there needs to be an element of seriousness coming with it for Mercedes Moné coming in as well. That she recognises Mercedes as being the boss, as being this legitimate threat to her championship. Because as much as Deonna Purrazzo has been good foil for her, she was quite dismissive of her, and that's one of the things in the psychology of wrestling. You can't be too dismissive of your opponent, because if you say that she's shit and she beats you, then you look shit. But if you beat her, you've just beat somebody that's shit. So there needs to be that more serious edge to it to legitimise Mercedes Moné coming in. It can't all be for the laughs and stuff. Stick with the black and white stuff. That aesthetic of the split screen and all that works an absolute treat. I love that. But I think to solidify or make people take the women's division more serious, when you're bringing in somebody of the calibre and of the draw power that Mercedes Moné has, it needs to be a full throttle, serious feud, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we've got that. What other titles have we not talked about so far? Tag titles. If they do become vacant, Tony loves a tournament. And they've got a lot of teams to pick from. Who would you say deserves the rub of being the next AEW tag team title holders?
Well, Moxie and Claudio got the win over FTR. You would think that's set up for them to win, isn't it? But I really want them to do something with Top Flight and Private Party.
Yeah.
Because they're like it feels like we've been waiting for those two forever to reach the level of the Bucks and the FTR. I know both of them have had rotten luck with injuries.
That could be the downside of it. They are so injury prone.
Yeah. But I think the Private Party have got they've got the charisma. They mirror the Street Profits in WWE a fair bit, and they've got that that appeal. So they would be the heels. Top Flight, they've got that old school lovable babyface tag team like the Rock and Roll Express, and then the Hardy Boys kind of appeal to them. And I think I'll be waiting for ages to those two finally get to the level where they have like brilliant feuds over the tag belt. So I don't see either of them winning it, but I hope they at least use the tournament for the tournament to finally get evolved into the next level, because the tag division, it can't always be the Bucks and FTR carrying it anymore. They need another two teams to really step up and take it to that next level. But I think all the signs are it's going to Moxley and Claudio after their win with FTR, and I could see them for probably having a feud probably having a match with FTR at Wembley. That's where that's going, isn't it? Have a rubber match, kind of.
Yeah, I'd say so. On there. But again, with Tony Khan and his way of booking tournaments, I mean, there are a lot of tag teams in AEW that maybe don't get the recognition or the TV time. I mean, you've got teams like the Righteous.
The Outrunners, I've not seen much of them, but like they seem to be like they're loved on Twitter.
Yeah,
Like they've got that 80s look and all that stuff.
Yep, you've got them. You've got the Butcher and the Blade kicking about. I mean, they'll be fodder in it.
I thought, didn't one of them leave
Did
recently?
they?
I thought I think it was it Blade.
Oh
no, or was it Butcher actually? Because he's in a rock band.
well,
I
maybe
think he decided. I thought I swore I heard that a few months back.
you could maybe even see Kyle Fletcher and Takeshita getting pushed together as a tag team. That keep the Don Callis family stuff there.
If Davis is back, obviously, Aussie Open.
Yeah, I mean, I think Davis is still. It was a broken arm he had, wasn't it? He broke his arm in one of the matches, so he's maybe still a wee bit away for being fit for that. There's so many opportunities. Mogul Embassy as well. You've got them in the mix, and just. There'll probably be a few Strange Bedfellows type deals in there. You'll get,
and of course you've got the Luchadors.
All the
CMLL.
Yeah. I'd imagine probably they'll chuck in RVD and Hook. You'll get something like that in there as well. So I would anticipate that there'll be a tournament for that. If indeed the titles are going to be vacated. And last but not least, the TNT Championship. Obviously, Christian Cage has retained that yet again. Who do we see taking that off him? Do you think Daniel Garcia is going to get another bite at it? Or do you think Adam Copeland's going to get another shot? Or will there be someone completely different? I mean, who else has got a dead dad? Who else has got a dead dad that Christian can go after?
Didn't somebody do a Twitter thread of all the AEW wrestlers with a dead dad, and is Orange Cassidy not one of them?
Oh, could be. Oh, that's the other championship. We never mentioned that.
Trent Barretta's definitely one. I know that. But I'm a wee bit disappointed Garcia didn't actually win it because they're clearly putting a lot behind him, and I think like the Copeland Cage feud is still open. It hasn't been resolved, and it doesn't need to have a title involved.
No.
It's two legends, two former best mates, etc., etc. I thought like Copeland was actually going to come out and cost Cage the match somehow, and Garcia would go over.
Have they had the singles match yet, or was that at the World's End?
That was the World's End.
Aye.
Where Cage won it, but then Killswitch did the
cash in thing, yeah.
Gave it. Aye. So, I think I kind of get why they want to keep it on Cage for a while back because he's just done this brilliant heel run, and it still has some legs on it. But I think it does need a change soon, and I don't think they would only be giving it to Copeland for the sake of giving him it, and I would like it going to Garcia just to change things up a wee bit. But I've always felt that the TNT title should be the title reserved for the big meaty men.
Yeah.
Because there's so many titles in AEW now that, all right, I'm not against having a lot of titles, but have them have a distinct difference. And I felt that the TNT title for a while was what the big meaty men title, because that started with you first had Brody Lee, then it fluctuated between Darby and Sammy, but then Miro and then Wardlow had their long runs with it.
Scorpio Sky as well.
Aye, so I always thought it should be the meaty men title, whereas you have the Continental Crown and the international title. You have them more as a workhorse title, like with the mirror the US and the Intercontinental titles in WWE. And then the FTW, I guess that's the hardcore title in many ways.
Aye.
So I do think a title change is needed, and I think it would be good if it's Garcia. If not, then all right, give it to Copeland, and he can. I guess he can maybe have a feud with Danielson with it. Danielson's determined to have a title run before he retires, so I can see maybe that working, and they've got history with WWE, etc.
No, that's a fair point. I think if you're going to earmark anybody for that, Garcia would be the one. because it's about time that he had some gold. And he's got his big new entrance now as well. I noticed that at the weekend. Well, it might be new. It's been a while since I've watched weekly episodic Dynamite.
I think the music's still the same, but they've given.
He's got the big fluorescent colours and stuff like that.
So I mean, and then they only reserve that to the top guys. So they've clearly got stock.
And then the other championship that I forgot to mention was the international title. Orange Cassidy lost that to Roddy Strong at Revolution, and we saw the return of Kyle O'Reilly in the aftermath of that. Do you think that that's possibly going to be Roddy's first main opponent for the international title, or do you see the rankings come into play and do the same as what Orange Cassidy did in his first run, where he was taking on all comers every week on that?
I think it is they'll have a feud with O'Reilly, but another one that we announced his return was Pac.
Yes,
in that promo, and I think Pac was the original holder of that title back when it was first called the All Atlantic, and he's been out that long. I could see him coming back, saying, "Daddy's home," and he wants his crown back, kind of thing. So I could see that going into place, and with Wembley looming, he'll want to be involved in a marquee match with a title on the line.
Yeah, I think if they're going to have Ospreay headline Wembley, they need to have another Brit doing something high profile, and I think that Pac's the big choice, because I don't think Anthony Ogogo is going to be doing it. But yeah, it's interesting to see the dynamics of all that, because again, you've got the Undisputed Kingdom stuff in there. You might see Chuck or Trent throw themselves into the hat, to Danhausen get involved, anyone from Best Friends. You've got a good mid-card roster that can be going after Roddy Strong on that as well. But again, with him being the heel champion, there's probably going to be many ways that he tries to get out of having to defend it. So it opens up a lot of opportunities there. But yeah, there's quite a lot of championships and different paths that they can go down on that. So I'm just kind of killing time, so if I can try and think of a headline. I don't know.
So many titles, so little time.
There we are. So many titles, so little time. There we are. We'll go with that for that. Now, in closing this week's episode of the Heat Sheet, we are going to flick to the TV pages. And Steve, you had mentioned something that was wrestling related, but not necessarily wrestling, that seems to be capturing the imaginations of quite a lot of people. So tell us what you would pick on that for people to seek out and watch. I should have said seek and destroy, or seek and enjoy. With reference to Sting getting Metallica back.
But we forgot to mention that earlier. How good was it hearing them give him seek and destroy for his entrance as well?
Yeah, I'm not a Metallica head by any means, but it was just.
I mean, when that came on at Wembley for him and Darby's entrance, man, fuck, what a pop! That's probably my best memory. From it.
Cool. But yeah, in terms of wrestling related, but not necessarily a wrestling thing to seek out and enjoy.
No. So, well, I'm a big cinephile, and the weekend saw the release of the biggest film of the year so far, Dune Part 2.
What's the correct way to pronounce it? Is it Dune? Is it Dune? Is it June? Like what? I've never known the right way to say that word.
I've always heard it. I've always said it's Dune because it's sand dune.
See, I would say sand dune.
I will be. It's annoying because it's like, especially with like thick Scottish or Irish accents like we've got. It's so hard to come off. But in the movie they pronounce Dune, and I think Frank Herbert, the author of the book, I think he confirmed in an interview not long before he died. No, it's pronounced Dune.
So it's Dune starring Timothée Chalamet. That's
Timothée Chalamet and well, this is why it's got a wrestling connection. Dave Bautista. He plays one of the villains, the Harkonnens, in it, and there's actually two wrestling connections away because the lovely Florence Pugh
From Fighting with My Family.
well, and she, of course, she played Paige in Fighting with My Family. So there's two wrestling connections there, and it's just an amazing film. If you are a big cinephile like me, you're doing yourself an injustice by not going to the IMAX and watching it. It's one of possibly even the greatest sci-fi film ever made.
So
I know
statement.
that is a big ballpark to make, but I think it's up there. It's one of those films. It's not a short film. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes. But I watched it in a packed theatre on IMAX with about 200 people in it. I could have had a pin drop the whole thing. That's a sign of a whole packed theatre enjoying what they saw. Nobody got up to do a piss break as well. That's unbelievable in a movie that long with that many people watching it. That's the biggest compliment I could give it.
Maybe they're just pissing in the Dune themed popcorn buckets that I've seen going about.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, like that's if you've seen the ill-conceived cups, there probably was a creep or two that came in and purchased a ticket just to get a hold of that. Listen, it will save them money on a blow up doll order from the internet. So fair play to them. By brilliant film, and I mean obviously I would recommend you see part 1 first to make sense of it. Even then, you probably will come away going.
It's just about big worms, isn't it? Big sandworms.
It's the other way to describe it is Star Wars for adults, or Star Wars meets Game of Thrones, because it's all about these warring families. Like in Game of Thrones, it's families that control large sections of land. Well, in Dune, it's rich families that actually own whole planets, and they're trying to all vie for this one planet called Arrakis, aka Dune, that has this substance called spice that can. It's a sci-fi metaphor for oil, basically.
So kind of like Avatar in that kind of way. They're looking for the renewable resource that they can take. What was it? Unobtainium in
Marvel, it's vibranium.
I'm sure because
that's black.
I'm sure. Like I've only seen the first Avatar film. I couldn't put myself through any more of it. But Unobtainium was one of those things that as soon as I heard it took me right out of the film. Oh, your mic's went off, Steve.
Sorry. It's about them all trying to control this one planet called Arrakis because it has this substance called spice that can create anything. It can create medicines and builds spaceships and battleships, etc. And Paul Atreides, who's the protagonist in it, played by Timothée Chalamet, he's now the head of House Atreides, and he unites with the natives of the planet called the Fremens, and he's going to rise up against the House Harkonnens. They're the baddies. That's who Bautista is fighting for, and along with the Empire, because there was this big conspiracy to wipe out Paul Atreides' family and have complete control of the planet. And if that doesn't get you going, it's got space bagpipes.
Space bagpipes.
What more could you want?
Cool. Well, that's a good way to kind of bookend this week's podcast. Talking about the Willy Wonka experience at the start of the show, and Timothée Chalamet, the young Wonka, at the end of it. So yeah, if you're into cinema and you like watching films with wrestlers in it and don't want to be bummed out by the Iron Claw, then get yourself along to see Dune/Dune 2 at your local View or Cineworld or Movie House or Omniplex as you get over here. But yeah, we'll quickly recap on this week's headlines. So on the front page, we spoke about Sting's retirement, and we had the headline as Sting's final match makes quite the splash. The back page was a two-hander between Omega, Takeshita, oh my god, or Takeshita, Takeshita Ospreay, oh my god, for that match, and the Continental Crown not too heavy on the head of Kingston for the Daniel Bryan against Eddie Kingston match, and for their TV pages, for the gossip pages, we had so many titles, so little time as that on there. Now, if you've got this far into the podcast, well done. If you're a first-time listener, go back and listen or watch the previous episodes, especially last week's The Good, the Bad and the Shitty. If you like your wrestling with a dose of quizzing, then that's the podcast for you. We'll do another one of those in a couple of weeks' time. Follow us on Twitter/X at The Heat Sheet Pods. You can also find us on YouTube under that handle. And wherever you get your podcasts, just look up the Heat Sheet Wrestling Podcast. I have been Chris Jack. Steve, you've been Steve Roche. Where can people find you online if you want them to?
You can get me. They can get me on Instagram, Steve Striker. I came up with that name when I was still a virgin, and my Twitter handle or X handle is Penta Steve Om.
Penta Steve Om. So you can. I'm at ChrisJack85 if you want to, follow me individually, or as I said, at the Heat Sheet Pod on Twitter as well. And for the rest of the week, however you enjoy your wrestling, wherever you want to find it, whenever you feel the heat, look out for the sheet. Cheerio.
Ow!